Rallying is an exciting sport, but there can be risks. This film is intended to try to help minimize those risks. Before getting down to the detail of running a rally, it's perhaps worth an organizing team or club determining their objectives in running the event and whether they have the resources for what they're planning. With the inherent risks in the sport and increasing litigation, it may be wise for organizers in some countries to consider their legal status and perhaps form a company specifically for the event. The next task is to build an organizing team. The FIA's Rally Safety Guidelines, which can be downloaded from FIA.com, are helpful over this. And in addition, local advice may be available from your national motorsport authority. Stewards will be needed. They act as impartial observers to see that the event is run according to the regulations. They also act as a judicial body if there's an appeal against a decision by the clerk of the course. Stewards should not have any other official job on an event. Below the stewards, there are many jobs to be done. The size of the team that does them will obviously depend on the size of the rally. This film concentrates on major stage events, but many of the points apply to smaller events too. Although on those, some of the jobs may not be necessary or may be combined. Exact job titles may vary from country to country, but broad responsibilities will be similar, and it's important that the key functions are carried out, whatever the titles. Incidentally, for simplicity, he has been used throughout this film, but this could equally be she, because women play a key role on many rallies. One person should head the organising team. The clerk of the course, who is in effect the manager of the rally, with overall responsibility for its safe running, for compliance with the relevant regulations, and for keeping the event on track. His duties are outlined in the FIA International Sporting Code. If the need arises, he'll be responsible for applying the safety plan as practically as possible. It will be his job to inform the stewards of all urgent matters and, in cooperation with the Chief Safety Officer, for making sure that all relevant information regarding emergency matters goes public only through the media office. It will make sense for him to have an assistant, and this role can be a useful training ground for future clerks. The clerk of the course must have a comprehensive knowledge of the route, the territory of the rally, the location of emergency teams, and the various chief marshals. Next, the secretary of the meeting, responsible for the general event paperwork and online activity, who in effect manages the office for the clerk of the course. A key role for the secretary is the signing on of competitors, and he or she, of course, may also be responsible for the financial side of the event, although larger events may even have a finance director. You may think finance isn't a safety issue. It could become so if poor financial management led to economies being made. Major events may well have a marketing director. The title may vary. They are in charge of income, sponsorship, and looking after event supporters. In other words, delivering value for money, which can be vital for the future of an event. The Chief Marshal plays a key role, responsible for arranging enough marshals for the rally and for making sure everyone knows what to do and where to go. On major events, this function may involve the clerk of the course, who will have marshal commanders for an area, each stage or group of stages. A chief timekeeper should be on the organising team to arrange the supply and distribution of timing equipment and to ensure that people know how to use it. As timing systems become more automated and GPS-based, training sessions are important. There should always be a backup timing system available. The chief timekeeper will also be in charge of the results team. A chief scrutineer will be needed and should be responsible for booking other scrutineers depending on the number of entries. Safety is a key function of the scrutineering process. Also important is a competitor relations officer, who acts as a bridge between the clerk of the course and competitors. The job is often done by an ex-co-driver who knows the rules and can advise competitors, although not instruct them. Moving on, the Chief Safety Officer has a vital role in supporting the clerk of the course to ensure the event is run safely. His job is to consider the risks to competitors, officials, marshals and spectators. These risks need to be thought about before deciding what contingency measures to put in the safety plan. Attention to safety should start well before an event. It's been known for people to be injured when setting up special stages, and the risks may not just be on the stages. There can be hazards in service areas, and the safety plan needs to recognize this. The Chief Safety Officer is responsible for booking the relevant number of safety, rescue and recovery vehicles, and for producing the all-important event safety plan and making sure that it's followed. The safety plan is covered in more detail later in the film. On the day of the rally, the safety officer or a deputy should check either personally or by radio the correct position of all safety vehicles and staff. With the clerk of the course and the secretary of the rally, he appoints the start and stop safety officers for each stage. The Chief Medical Officer is responsible for recruiting doctors and paramedic teams to support the event. He'll also be responsible for medical input during preparation of the safety plan, or for a separate medical safety plan. He should visit hospitals and medical centres to ask medical staff to be on alert during the rally. This should be confirmed in writing not less than 16 days before the event. On the rally itself, he should ensure that all medical staff have met with their stage commanders and have been positioned at the pre-arranged locations. A radio controller needs to be on the organising team. Communication is the key to all successful safety operations, and a reliable radio system is vital. Organisers should ensure that radio frequencies are booked and paid for in advance with the relevant licensing authorities, if appropriate. The radio controller will usually be one of the deputy clerks of the course, who sits alongside the clerk and fields calls from stage commanders or other deputies as part of an organised plan. The ideal control of any incident is by using a helicopter, so that the clerk can see exactly what's going on. But few events can afford that and must rely on clear information via radio links. As the clerk of the course may sometimes be out of communication range on an event, the radio controller may have to make some important decisions, so needs to be someone who can work under pressure and of course has the necessary authority to make those decisions. A large event may need more than one radio frequency and therefore more than one radio controller. The safety and medical frequency must not be swamped by administration calls that should be dealt with on a separate network. Anyone using a radio on an event should be aware of the correct procedure and should always remember that others could be listening via scanners or other devices. Stage commanders are responsible for making sure stages are fully ready by the appointed time and for dealing first-hand with any safety and operational details, such as making sure that stage-based officials and marshals are signed on. Stages are usually broken into sections, with a senior marshal for each section in radio contact with the stage commander. Special stage safety officers should be fully aware of the safety plan and be in contact with the special stage commander, the chief safety officer and safety marshals. They should check such things as emergency roads to ensure that an ambulance will not be blocked by spectators' cars if there's an accident. Depending on the size of the rally, organisers may well get many media requests for information. It's important that only one person, the media officer, who on many events will report to the marketing director, handles this side of things. If you have an incident on a rally, all media inquiries should be directed to this person. Other personnel should be briefed about not voicing opinions on, say, accidents to the media. To reinforce this point, the media officer should publish an incident procedure, clearly setting everything out. The rapid growth in social media offers opportunities to rally organisers, but it also presents challenges. Organisers and marshals need to remember that any exciting incident near spectators will almost certainly go onto social media sites. In fact, it's been known for video footage of an accident to be posted on a social media site before the arrival of the emergency services. Any serious incident will be a magnet to spectators, and the conduct of an extraction and/or medical treatment of casualties will often be filmed, unless there are enough marshals to cordon off the scene. The law over filming of incidents is not the same in all countries, but spectators and media anywhere are likely to want to take photographs. Acting within the law, organisers should seek to establish a safe working area and ensure that the privacy of those involved is protected. The arrival of senior officials and medical staff may help here. It will be the responsibility of the police to gather evidence if there's been a serious accident. The media officer may well be the person in charge of public relations for the rally. Good PR is essential to minimize the disruption caused by an event. Remember, not everyone loves our sport. Whoever handles PR will need support from people with diplomatic skills, who should be briefed on precisely what approach to take and what to say, and just as important, what not to say, when contacting the public. Finally, a helicopter coordinator will be needed on major events to cover liaison over the use of airspace and so on. If helicopters are likely to be used, the helicopter section of the FIA's rally safety guidelines should be studied, along with local air traffic control laws. Keep in mind, of course, that helicopters may not be able to fly in poor conditions. That's a very long list of people, and it must again be stressed that not all events will need all those posts filled, and titles may differ. But whatever the team structure, safety should remain the priority. Good communications within an organising team are important for a safe event. It's essential, for example, to have everyone in agreement on a realistic timetable, which in particular highlights issues which need to be dealt with well in advance and which could, if missed, cause cancellation. There needs to be clear understanding of job descriptions to avoid duplicated effort, or worse, things being missed. You'll also need good communications with your National Motorsport Authority, local authorities, the police, sponsors, and for some events, with local car clubs who may be able to help. Event clothing for those involved may help build a team spirit and perhaps create revenue from the sale of such material, or at least exposure for your sponsors. While during an event itself, personnel should wear identifying tabards. The colours recommended by the FIA for these are Safety Marshals, orange. Safety Officer, orange with white stripe and text. Post Chief, blue with white stripe and text. Media, green. Stage Commander, red with text. Competitor Relations Officer, red jacket or red tabard. Medical, white. Radio, yellow with blue mark. Scrutineer, black. All official photographers should wear numbered tabards. Not all these will be needed on smaller events. Before the full organising team is in place, route planning will have been completed by the clerk of the course. As well as the all-important location of controls and the special stages, many other things have to be considered. For example, start and finish towns, perhaps dependent on what financial support is being offered by places. Adequate hotel accommodation in the area. HQ location with enough rooms and adequate parking. Media area. An adequate area for scrutineering. For major events, a garage lift will be needed. It will be time-consuming if there's only one. Service areas. These should be arranged at suitable places to cope with the number of entries expected. Time controls should be placed at the entry and exit to such areas so that time spent on service can be measured and controlled. Service park lighting if running into darkness. Rally organisers also need to consider alternative routes, movement of spectators between stages, environmental requirements, fuel availability, and areas where there are radio dead spots or mobile coverage doesn't exist if using GPRS-based tracking. There are so many systems that it can get complicated, but any major event should have a tracking system in place. GPRS systems based on mobiles are not expensive to run, but will depend on the coverage. Extra transmitter systems can be hired, but whatever the system, manual backup tracking by marshals remains necessary. Roadbook should give information on GPS locations of all junctions, vehicles at radio points, and HQ emergency telephone numbers. With the route planned, the safety plan should be prepared. As mentioned earlier, under the duties of the Chief Safety Officer, this is the most important document for a safe event. The plan should include names of the people in charge of functions, plus the names and phone numbers of the various safety services, police, hospitals, emergency medical services, firefighting, and breakdown services. The plan should include the full itinerary and a safety plan for each stage. This will involve cooperation with each stage commander to prepare a plan for each stage, showing the meeting points and locations of ambulance, fire and rescue teams, radio point marshals and safety marshals. The plan should also decide on no-go areas for spectators and evacuation points. WRC regulations specify deadlines for submitting the safety plan and other documentation to the FIA. The safety plan should specifically address issues over the safety of the public, the safety of competing crews, and the safety of officials on the event. The plan should also include details of which rescue services are stationed where, not forgetting scrutineering and service areas. Instructions for the intervention in the case of an incident needing someone transferred by ambulance or helicopter. Evacuation routes. Rendezvous points and so on. And hospitals which should have been contacted and which would be used in an emergency should be listed. Before the rally, the safety officer should ensure that everyone who needs it has a copy of the safety plan in time to read it and understand it, that people are properly trained, and that the responsibilities assigned to them are clear. One of the greatest challenges in rallying, and hence of vital importance in drawing up a safety plan, is to ensure the safety of spectators. At least half of special stage cancellations are due to spectator emergencies, falling over, heart attacks, etc. And these absorb rally medical services. Many of the watching public don't clearly understand the potential danger and don't fully appreciate the speed of the cars. As a result, they may place themselves in dangerous positions simply through lack of understanding. When positioning spectators or marshalling points, organisers should remember that cars can run wide on corners, they can cut corners, throw up stones, overshoot junctions, run off the road after jumps or at an S-bend or at a medium fast bend after a very fast section. Remember too that a car that's out of control can travel a very, very long way. It's wise to assume that cars can do the unexpected, either through driver error or an unforeseen happening. When planning special stages, get an experienced driver or co-driver to go through them to identify possible danger spots, where runoff space is needed, and so on. Let's take a look at footage from a helicopter of various safety-related scenarios. A left-hand hairpin. On approach, cars can lose control under braking, so spectator no-go areas are in place. Cars can also go straight on, so the escape road is clear. Also, the spectators are kept clear at the exit of the corner if a car runs wide or spins. Green areas mark a safe distance from danger for spectators. Now a 90-degree right junction. Again, the approach to the junction is cordoned off on both sides, plus the escape road and exit of the corner. Spectators are kept safe on the inside of the junction, away from harm. A fast left-handed bend. Cars in this example are travelling faster, thus the red areas on the outside of the bend extend further. There is also potential danger in a car spinning to the inside of the bend, exiting the corner. Again, the green areas indicate a safe distance for spectators. This time, a view from the safety car of a brow with a jump. Again, red areas indicate where cars could land and lose control. Spectators are kept well clear. The same location from the air. The car flies high and could lose control on landing. Spectators are kept away from the side of the stage, and the green area indicates a high but safe vantage point. Finally, an example of spectators congregating around a tarmac hairpin. Many people are lining the edge of the road in a braking area. In this instance, no marshals or police appear to be present in an area which is appealing to spectators and with a very high potential for danger. Organisers must analyse a stage to anticipate where spectators may gather. As well as identifying where people should not spectate, you will make the marshals' work easier if safer areas are identified where people can stand, such as on higher ground. Each spectator viewing point needs to be identified by a letter or number, so if there is an incident, the exact location can be quickly established. The pre-event inspection of stages should help identify special danger spots for competitors, such as a tree on a fast bend, a big drop, narrow bridge, and so on. It may be possible to protect such places with straw bales. Round ones more than 1 metre in diameter are recommended, or a wall of connected tyres. Where Armco is installed, the leading end should be protected. Chicanes can be used for reducing speeds before danger spots, although organisers should try to find roads where they're not necessary. If chicanes are used, they should be noted in road books and be in place, or their positions marked on the road during any reconnaissance. During the pre-event inspection, organisers should make provision for an alternative route for each special stage in the event of cancellation. All pre-planned access roads to special stages should be put in the official programme, as well as in special leaflets and on the event's website. Simple signs should be used to guide spectators from main roads towards the proper parking areas and designated spectator zones. Wherever possible, likely spectators should be informed in advance of safety codes, signage and so on through websites and publications. Media parking areas should be established where photographers will be working. On the event, special marshals may be needed to assist photographers and prevent spectators from approaching. "He's taking pictures, why can't I?" may be the angry cry. Only media people wearing a tabard should be allowed in those areas of special stages to which spectators are not normally admitted. All other members of the media should conform to normal spectator standards, except for interview areas, media centres and so on. Nobody likes to think there'll be accidents on a rally, but it's wise to plan for them. The safety plan should determine the course of action to be taken if there's an accident. In some cases, the plan may call for stopping the stage and sending emergency vehicles through the stage as being the quickest route. Priority order for access to stages at radio points should be medical, fire, then tow. So with all the plans in place comes the big day. Documentation and scrutineering should be handled efficiently but in a friendly manner to set the tone of the event. The competitor relations officer will have a part to play here. Points to keep in mind. Have enough space. Try to avoid queues. If using a garage for scrutineering, avoid machine areas, pits or working areas. If parts like turbos, which may be carried in service vehicles, have to be sealed, have one lane for this and another lane for competitors. If a helicopter is being used, then roof numbers on cars should be in place at scrutineering. Check also SOS warning boards, warning triangles, seatbelt cutters accessible to outside assistance, etc., as should be listed in the regulations, helmets and overalls. And is the tracking system working? One key safety issue is everything in the car strapped down. Even small things flying around in an accident can do serious harm. All the officials mentioned earlier will have a part to play to ensure a successful and safe rally. For example, the Chief Safety Officer should check the correct position of all safety vehicles and staff. And the Chief Medical Officer should stay in communication with the Chief Safety Officer as well as the clerk of the course to advise him of the seriousness of any incident or injury reported during the rally. Each stage commander is responsible for checking that all signs and people are in place in good time, and safety cars equipped with radios and mobile phones should run over each special stage between 1.5 hours and 50 minutes before the first car is due. Their task is to highlight possible route problems and check the closing of all junctions and the correct signposting of all prohibited areas. Road closing cars should go over stages ahead of the first competitor. The first, which could in fact be the last of the safety cars, should go over the stage between 40 and 50 minutes before the first rally car to check that all warning signs, radio marshals and safety marshals are in place. Its crew should inform HQ of the stage's readiness. The car should have a loudspeaker, flashing roof lights and sirens, radio and mobile phone. It's worth having a checklist of things to be carried in any official car due to cover a special stage. A second road closing car, similarly equipped and driven by an experienced rally driver, should go over each stage between 30 and 40 minutes ahead of the first competitor as a further check. Then, finally, a third road closing car, driven by an experienced crew, should run each stage between 10 and 20 minutes ahead of the rally. This is the final check of the stage, and the final warning that the event is about to start. Not all events will be able to afford so many cars running over the stages before competitors, but it's important that at least a couple of cars go over each stage. One at say 30 minutes and the other at 10 to 15 minutes before the first car, depending on the length of the stage. For safety's sake, any safety or road closing cars should not be driven flat out. The FIA stressed that all such vehicles should be crewed by experienced competitors or organisers who are properly briefed. Officials are on an event to work, not play. If there's an accident, all medical and safety crews should report to the stage commander, who should in turn inform Rally HQ. If a serious accident is reported, the stage commander should let the stage safety officer interrupt the starting procedure after informing the clerk of the course and receiving his permission to do so, and implement the yellow flag procedure, which signals to competitors that they must slow down until they reach the end of the stage or the next radio point.
Off at post 10.
A radio point marshal or a safety marshal who is closer to the scene of the accident may be told to go to the spot as soon as possible to give a more accurate report of what's happened. Rescue vehicles, including ambulances, should always drive in the direction of the rally. As there may be competing cars following, rescue crews should make certain there is a warning triangle displayed and park their vehicle so that it protects the car involved in the accident. The rescue crew should report on the situation to the Chief Safety Officer at Rally HQ. If official cars are on the stage, no cars should be permitted to start the stage thereafter. This is a yellow flag situation. The yellow flag can only be authorised for display by the clerk of the course and stops the stage until safe. Cars affected are given a notional time. Then a safety car should again reopen the stage. If there's an injury, the doctor will decide whether the injured needs to go to hospital and will decide on the means of getting them there. If the removal of a casualty is by ambulance, this should either be via the finish of the stage or via an emergency exit agreed in advance. After the last competitor has gone through, one or more official cars should sweep the stage to check any broken down cars and, if necessary, reporting on them to the Chief Safety Officer. No stage control should close unless given permission by the crew of the sweeping vehicle. Authorization to close a stage will be given by the clerk of the course to each stage commander, who will then inform the marshals at their posts. When, finally, the event is over, as well as thanking everyone, organisers should consider asking competitors and marshals to complete a survey on the running of the event. Organisers should also have a debriefing session afterwards to discuss what can be done to improve the event next time. Most organising teams will have good ideas, particularly after significant incidents, and the ideas should be collected before memories fade. This film has covered a lot of detail and mentioned a great many officials. It must yet again be stressed that not all rallies will need so many people. Some of the jobs may be combined and titles may differ. But the need for a well thought out safety plan and attention to detail applies whatever the size of the rally. People marshal for a variety of reasons. To be at the heart of the sport, to learn new skills, or perhaps for the camaraderie. Many countries will have special schemes to encourage youngsters to marshal, but whatever the reason, their support is vital for successful and safe rallies. There are unlikely to be fitness tests for marshals. By signing on, you're indicating that you're fit for the duties you're undertaking. Although some countries may, for instance, ask you to run so many meters in so many seconds while carrying a fire extinguisher. Whether there are checks or not, it still makes sense to be reasonably fit. Don't be put off marshalling because you've no experience. National associations, as well as many clubs, run training courses, and newcomers will usually be placed with experienced marshals. You may need to be multifunctional at times, and a sense of humour will often be important too. Learn something about first aid. If possible, go on a first aid course, or read up on the subject to learn the basics and how, for example, to lift things safely. Choosing the right personal equipment is important for marshals if they're to operate efficiently and safely. The better kitted out you are, the more efficient and comfortable you'll be. Remember that motorsport can be noisy, and noise can damage hearing permanently, so use proper ear protection. On many events you won't need any special clothing, but on others you may need to guard against extremes of temperature, causing either hypothermia or sunstroke. Be prepared for the worst and dress in layers. You can always take off a layer if you get too hot. For very cold events, consider thermal underwear. Marshals should never get too near a fire, but nevertheless, as a precaution, wear natural fibers like cotton and wool, because man-made materials can melt and cause nasty burns even under protective clothing. Hats are important because we lose a high proportion of body heat through our heads in cold conditions, while in others, a hat can protect you from the sun. A broad-brimmed one will be better than a cap because it will protect your neck. Stout boots are recommended. Avoid trainers. They don't provide protection or support the ankles, and they're rarely waterproof. Gloves should be carried for warmth on some events, for protection on others, although even if you're wearing gloves, it may still be safer and quicker to kick debris out of the way rather than pick it up. Something that's fallen off a car may be very hot. There may be a range of tabards to be worn by different officials, and these will be provided by the rally organisers. At the very least, wear a high visibility jacket or tabard to help identification, particularly when dealing with spectators. Note, however, that a tabard doesn't entitle a marshal to go chasing over a special stage. Other equipment? Well, a whistle to alert people to approaching cars, a torch, first aid kit, writing equipment, and not least some food and drink, although not alcohol, of course. Some extra food items may be appreciated by rally crews stranded with you while awaiting recovery, although not if they're likely to need medical attention, as this could delay treatment. Don't assume refreshments will be available or that you'll be able to reach them even if they are. With so many bits and pieces to remember, it's worth having a personal checklist so that things don't get forgotten. Regarding any equipment, make sure it's working and that you know how to operate it before the rally. That's the time to read instructions on a fire extinguisher. Asking a casualty to hold your torch while you take a quick look through a first aid booklet will not exactly inspire confidence. With your kit sorted, volunteer to marshal in good time to save the organisers headaches and then allow plenty of time to get to the event. There may be a build-up of rally traffic. Sign on in good time and write legibly because signing on may trigger the event insurance for you. It should be noted that in some countries, marshalling clubs or associations have schemes for their members which enhance official insurance arrangements. You may have been informed in advance, but if not, establish exactly where you are going to marshal. You'll probably be given a map by the organisers showing your specific point on a stage, who to report to, and what your marshalling job will be. Study any documentation like time cards before you leave for your post, and if in doubt about anything, ask. Always set your own watch to official time as a fallback. When you get to your designated post, park carefully. If there's no official place, take care to park in an ultra-safe place, remembering that a rally car that's out of control can travel a very, very long way. Don't block accesses or exits in case they're needed in an emergency. Get to know the team on your post and establish who is in charge and who will be doing what. Clear communications are vital for a safe event. It's useful to have a what-if session on the post, considering who will do what if such and such a thing happens. Know where the previous and next marshals are located. In addition, liaison with the police will be necessary in many countries, where their presence is required if using closed roads. Teamwork will often be important. As an example, if one person with a fire extinguisher tackles a burning car, it may continue burning, as it may if a second marshal then has a go. Two marshals working together may well succeed in extinguishing the fire. Know what the different colours of spectator tape mean, and also the rules in place on the use of a yellow flag. Know too the rally rules relevant to your job. For instance, can a car be pushed from the start line? What is the procedure about working on a car in a control area? What are your personal responsibilities? Pay attention to safety when deciding where to stand. Don't leave yourself vulnerable if a car overshoots. This is an area where marshals should look out for one another. If it's unsafe for spectators, it's unsafe for you too. Don't stand on the stage and don't stand in front of arrows or signs. Don't stand on piles of logs or fences. And don't block escape routes. Don't take photographs. And don't take children or pets when marshalling. Do stand in a safe place. And do leave yourself room to move quickly. Do know the location of the nearest radio car. And do listen for approaching cars and use your whistle to warn people. And do stay alert. One of the most challenging tasks marshals face is dealing with spectators. The sport simply has to do this for safe rallying. People and crowd management skills are now an important requirement for marshals. Remember that it will always be easier to get people to move before they've settled down in a place. Keep in mind too that some spectators may be new to the sport and may need educating about the risks. The best way to get people to do what you want is by example. If marshals are badly parked or are just there to get a good view, or are just chatting or even worse smoking, well, they can't expect to command the respect or cooperation from spectators. Spectator attitudes and excitability may vary between countries. Alcohol consumption may also cause problems. Marshals need to strike an appropriate balance. Be too diffident and you won't control spectators. Marching up to them with your arms folded, scowling, with a "what the hell are you doing" attitude, may just antagonize them. It may help to explain why something is necessary. If you go there, be careful because. Or you may be better going this way because. And actively listening to spectators' comments may make them more cooperative too. But if, sadly, things do get out of control, then you may have no alternative than to call for help to prevent a stage being cancelled. Marshals may have to deal with media people who should be wearing official accreditation. With or without accreditation, the media must respect prohibited area signs, and you may have to point out to them that focusing on getting a perfect picture may put them at too much risk of being struck by a car or flying stones, so they must reconsider and relocate. If necessary, call for help from sector officials and safety cars to resolve such issues. As well as controlling spectators, helping run special stages may form an important part of a marshal's job. At the start of a stage, make sure that the team has room to operate the start equipment and that the emergency services are parked to give immediate access if there's a problem. Practice your procedures, clocks, lights, time cards and check sheets on official vehicles running before the competitors. Ensure that marker tapes are in place to keep spectators clear of the operations, including any timing beams, and clear of any areas where flying stones are likely. This will need at least one marshal or two to supervise. If a queue of competing cars builds up to start a stage, make sure there's room for a latecomer to get through without putting anyone at risk. Have your paperwork, check sheets, reports and so on organised ready for the crew of the sweeper car. These are often in a hurry and will appreciate your efficiency. At the finish of a stage, make sure that marker tapes are in place to keep spectators clear of operations, including any timing beams and transmission wires. As at the start, this will need a marshal or two to supervise. Keep a check of times given. Incidentally, be careful if you have a pen or watch on a cord around your neck. If this catches on a competing car, you may find yourself doing a section of the stage at speed, but on foot. Remember that slowing down areas may be hazardous places. Consider the possibility of overshoots. Encourage crews that have stopped safely to pull well clear before taking off helmets, balaclavas and gloves. On high-profile events, media people may gather at stage finishes and will need managing as successive cars approach. Make sure that check sheets are kept covered if it's raining and that they're in the hands of someone with good handwriting, even as far as a cross 7 being easier to differentiate from a 1 than an uncrossed digit. Work as a team and have a plan if more than one car arrives in close succession, a common occurrence. Recording the times is critical. They can then be read back to the marshal marking time cards. Make sure that previous car numbers on time cards are checked. This system is very important in establishing if cars are missing. Tell radio control if there's a missing car. Wherever you're working as a marshal, try to remain polite when dealing with drivers. They may be under some stress. Make sure rally signs stay in place for as long as the stage is live, and replace any that get damaged or go missing. Many events use stages twice. If so, replenish used materials between runs, and advise stage commanders of oil spillage on asphalt events or safety concerns. Car recovery between runs may not always be possible. Whatever safety precautions are in place, there may still be an accident. If so, Look after your own safety first, because you won't be able to help anyone if you get hurt. Protect the scene and stop and think before you leap into further action. What is the nature of the accident, low or high risk? Is a car in a dangerous place? What is the condition of the crew? Is assistance needed? Report all this to the stage commander via radio or giving a message to a following competitor in the event of a serious accident. If there's no immediate need of medical support, the OK board warning triangle should be displayed by the competitors. If additional resources are needed, then the SOS board should be shown, again by the crew. As to the accident itself, deal with fire first and try to isolate the car's electrics. Try to approach a potential casualty from their line of vision so that they don't have to turn their head. Don't grab a casualty or drag one out of a car unless the risk of leaving them there is greater due to, for example, a fire. Look out for the quiet casualty. Someone speaking or shouting must be breathing. Give way to expert help such as a doctor, but continue to help if you can, if only by making sure nobody is smoking near a crashed car. One area for caution. If a car rolls and ends up on its roof, the natural instinct of marshals and spectators may be to roll it quickly back onto its wheels. No, doing this without protecting the crew inside the car may result in harming them. The safest method is as shown on the screen. One or more members of the rescue team supports the head and neck of each member of the crew as the car is rolled gently back onto its wheels. 2 final points on accidents. Report facts, not opinions, and be comfortable with those facts because you could be repeating them in a court of law. It's worth making a short note of any serious incident. This should be done soon after the incident, not days later. And remember that clear guidelines should have been set out by the organisers over who talks to the media after an accident. An off-the-cuff, unguarded comment by a marshal could cause difficulties later. When to stand down? Well, don't assume a stage is closed until officially told so, because there may have been delays that have resulted in cars running late. Take care even when the stage is officially closed, because rescue and recovery vehicles may still have work to do. Before leaving a marshalling post, it's worth having a debrief. This may be particularly important if there's been a bad accident, which may have caused stress and distress among the marshals involved. The stage commander should have advised you what to do with any equipment used on post. Don't leave any litter behind, and if you've been asked to marshal in more than one place, try to avoid using the rally route when driving between them. As for your personal equipment, make a note of anything extra you need to take next time, and clean kit before stowing it away. Finally, if the organisers send out a questionnaire asking for views on the event, do complete it. Organisers are talented people, but they're not mind readers, so this is your chance to highlight any issue. As you may have gathered from all that, marshalling can be a challenging and exciting job, which will put you at the very heart of the action. Marshalling is a job which is vital for safe rallying. Thank you for your help. The better prepared and fitter you are, the better and safer driver you're likely to be. So personal preparation for rallying is important. Fitness will aid stamina and concentration, while if you're trying to improve power to weight, it may be easier and cheaper to take weight off round your waist than off your car. It's compulsory to have a medical to get a competition license in many countries. An eye test and a colour blindness check can also be part of the medical. Wearing glasses, ideally with plastic lenses or contact lenses, preferably soft ones, will not be a bar to competing. A disability may not be a bar to rallying either. Your national governing body will be able to advise you. Keep in mind that motorsport can be noisy, and noise can damage your hearing permanently, so use proper ear protection. Follow your doctor's advice on medical matters. If you get ill after passing a medical, then you must declare it, otherwise you could be a danger to yourself and others. As you could if you compete when feeling seriously below par for any reason. If you take medication, including over-the-counter remedies, then be sure to declare this. No alcohol or performance-enhancing drugs should be taken while competing. Other drugs? Well, the sport follows the list used by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and the only drugs acceptable are those on that list. If in any doubt, ask rather than risk being thrown out of an event. Make sure your co-driver is aware of your medical condition and that you know theirs, and consider putting any medical details on, say, a bracelet. But note, this is the only time to wear jewellery when competing. If you're involved in an accident, anything attached to noses, ears, eyebrows or lips may be pulled off with your helmet and cause injury if it needs to be removed quickly. And incidentally, if you're an enthusiastic chewer of gum, don't do so on an event. Gum could kill you if it sticks in your windpipe following an accident. 2 final points on medical matters. Keep injections up to date if you're doing events abroad, and learn something about first aid, not least because competitors may be the first on the scene of an accident. There's not much advice a film can give about your mental preparation for a rally. Obviously, try to eat and sleep well, although the latter may not be easy if you're nervous before a big event. As a general rule, eat little and often rather than filling up on calories and liquids just before competing. Going on a driver training course may help steady your nerves and make you a better driver, and you may find yourself spending less on repairing the car after accidents. Having realistic aims may help reduce stress, and if, for instance, it's a constant struggle to cope with finance, then perhaps consider dropping a category to cut costs. Finally, on mental preparation, marshalling on or helping organise rallies may give you a broader insight into the sport. As for other preparation, the best advice is to plan. You may notice that competition often eases towards the end of a championship year as people drop out because of funding problems. Plan and budget sensibly, you may avoid this. Things may be less stressful and you won't be tempted to skimp on safety items. As the sport has its dangers, it's worth keeping your affairs in order. For instance, making sure you have adequate insurance cover. Check what insurance is already in place for the event and top that up if necessary. Regarding personal equipment, get the best you can afford. It's your body it will be protecting. And that starts with your underwear, which, being next to your skin, could be an important line of defense in a fire, so it should be flame resistant, as should any socks. Ensure any kit complies with national or international regulations, and be sure that clothing, seat belts or helmets are not time expired. The rules change from time to time, so you need to be up to date on the latest information. As an example, FIA labelling requirement for homologated seats, etc. now feature a hologram sticker, while seat belts have a sewn-in date label. Moving on with personal equipment. Make sure footwear is the right size and that laces are tied so they don't get tangled around pedals. What's fine for a driver may not be quite so good for a co-driver who may need to rush off somewhere. As conditions on rallies vary, it may be worth carrying overshoes to wear when out of the car when wet. As an alternative, there's a range of co-driver boots offered by many of the sports specialist clothing suppliers. Gloves should be flame resistant, of course. For some events, it will be wise to have a rally jacket to keep you warm at, say, service areas. And take a hat too, because 30% of heat lost from the body is through the head. Hypothermia won't improve your championship chances, so if necessary, take a thermal blanket too. If you carry waterproofs to protect against rain, keep in mind that some are less flame resistant than others. Wear your own equipment, not borrowed items, when it comes to things like helmets and overalls. You may not know the history of borrowed ones, such as the number of washes that overalls have had that may have reduced the fireproofing. Make sure overalls fit correctly and snugly around the neck, wrist and ankles. Keep them clean. Overalls smeared with engine oil may not offer much protection in the event of a fire. Your helmet needs to be a good fit. Never wear a helmet that's not your size or that needs extra padding to make it fit. The same size helmet from different manufacturers may not always fit you in the same way, so always try before you buy. Always make sure the chin strap is tight to minimize the risk of the helmet coming off in an accident. Don't drill holes in a helmet, and if decorating one, only use the maker's certified paints. The wrong sort could weaken the shell. Decals too may affect a helmet's integrity. Look after your helmet. Keep it in a bag when not in use, preferably not in a garage environment. If you drop a helmet, then it may be unsafe since the interior layers may deform even if the outer layer appears fine. The same applies if you knock a helmet during an incident. In fact, if your helmet has suffered any sort of impact or has abrasion damage, consider replacing it. It's a good idea to renew your helmet from time to time anyway, rather than cling on to an old favourite that might not be giving you the best protection. If using a frontal head restraint, or FHR, often referred to as a HANS head and neck support, although that in fact is a brand name, ensure it's the correct one for you, as there are several different sizes and angle combinations. The restraint, seat and helmet need to be compatible. The frontal head restraint that's correct for you in one car may not be so in another. As with any safety equipment, the installation, condition and use need to be correct for it to provide maximum protection. Guidance on the selection and use of frontal head restraint can be found on FIA.com. Good equipment won't be cheap, so it's worth looking after it and checking and cleaning it before putting it away after a rally. On many events, co-drivers may almost be office managers, looking after documentation and so on, perhaps even checking that the driver has a supply of his favourite chocolate biscuits. Then on an event, a co-driver can sometimes play a very important safety role by perhaps urging caution if driving becomes too aggressive for the conditions. The co-driver needs to be comfortable, so consult him or her over a footrest and where to use non-slip materials. Clear communication between driver and co-driver is vital for both speed and safety, so a good intercom system is important. Make sure it is fitted correctly in the helmet. Keep in mind that one can play a part in protecting against the risks to hearing caused by noise in motorsport. Volume adjustable systems are best. Moving on to car preparation, safety starts before the event, in the garage or workshop. Don't work under an unsupported car. Do protect your eyes and ears when necessary, and have a first aid kit to hand. consider keeping the car on stands during a layoff. Deflating tyres can weaken sidewalls. And remember that the rubber compound of old tyres progressively hardens with age. Even if the tread looks good, they will lose their competitive edge, especially on tarmac. Know the regulations for the event and for your car, and plan the work so that, for instance, long lead items are ordered in good time. Planning may also avoid a last-minute rush, which could lead to mistakes and cause safety problems. Talk to people who've prepared your make of car before, and keep records. While stripping a car may be relatively simple, putting the bits together again may be a lot easier if you've labelled things and taken photographs of tricky areas. Above all, always assume that preparation work will probably take twice as long and cost twice as much as you expected, so build a healthy contingency sum into your budget. With safety in mind, pay careful attention to seats, seat belts, roll cages, onboard fire extinguishing systems, as well as things to be carried like SOS signs, warning triangles, etc. It's worth having your own checklist for such items. Other points to bear in mind when preparing a rally car. Does the roll cage meet the regulations? It must. On some events, you may be asked for a manufacturer's certificate. Check that there's no sign of previous accident damage or of old welding indicating a repair. Are the tubes welded with welds of good quality? Check that the bends have not caused the tube to be ovalized or rippled. On older cars, look for cracks and corrosion and make sure padding is not hiding a defect. Use the correct size and quality of mounting plates and bolts, and make sure all bolts are tightened. Check if the fuel tank needs to be in date before you travel. Even if it doesn't, it's still worth inspecting it regularly for damage. The tank has a breather pipe on it, which must be kept clear at all times for performance reasons. It should also have a non-return valve or rollover pipe fitted. Make sure this is correctly routed. Wiring harnesses are not regularly removed, but it's worth ensuring there's no chafing at bulkhead holes or in any other awkward-to-see areas. Fire extinguisher pull cables should be cleaned and oiled regularly, and the electrical triggering system tested. Safety film may be required for all glass. Are the seats required to be FIA homologated, and if so, are they in date? Check for signs of cracking. Composite seats may crack on the sides at waist height, anywhere on the edges, around mounting points and across the backrest at shoulder blade height. Tubular seats generally crack in similar areas, normally in the weld zone, and watch out for corrosion. Seats should be secured with suitable fixings and proper brackets, preferably not homemade and not of the sliding type. Only use FIA homologated seat belts and never buy second-hand. You may not know where they've been. Make sure seat belts are correctly installed with adequate mounting plate reinforcements. Use a 6-point harness where possible, mounted according to the technical regulations, and keep each strap as short as possible. Check that the straps are free of nicks and abrasion damage, and that adjusters are not pulling against seats where straps pass through apertures. Check that the release buckle is working smoothly, and that any metalwork on the straps is not distorted or cracked. International events and some national ones will require a seatbelt cutter to be fixed to the outside of each seat. Don't let belts become scruffy, not least because you could be thrown out by the scrutineers. And of course, know how to release the belts, remembering to do so only when the car has come to a stop. You may be doing this when upside down. As you near the end of the car's preparation, aim to keep the cabin tidy. Look for any corners and edges where your head, hands and legs might make contact, and round them off or pad them with appropriate energy-absorbing material. Pad anything that's sharp, and don't just think fore and aft. Consider possible injury if the car slides sideways into a tree. Strap things down so they don't dangerously fly around the car in an accident. It follows that in-car cameras should not just be on suction mounts. Think too about the stowage of heavier items, particularly in the boot and near the fuel tank. If a wheel brace breaks loose, it could puncture a tank. Make sure your SOS board and first aid kit are readily and obviously accessible. You might need someone else to get at them for you. When the car's finally prepared, don't rush off to test it without thinking of safety while doing so. Think too of any other team transport, chase or management cars and trailers, which should be properly maintained and kept clean and tidy with good tyres, working lights and brakes. Anything in the vehicles should be safely secured. Perhaps practice wheel changing during any shakedown test. Then, as the event approaches, enter in good time and sort out things like travel and accommodation. Check that you have the right level of competition license and study the regulations carefully. Don't assume they've simply been carried over from previous years. Rules may have changed. Raise any queries about the event before the start. If traveling to another country for a rally, know the speed limits there as well as the regulations regarding trailers and towing. Clean your car before scrutineering. This will make it easier to spot leaks or cracks and additionally make scrutineers happier. It's probably a good idea to empty both bladder and bowels before the start. Nerves may act as a natural reminder. Once underway, switch on, concentrate, and don't skimp on fluid intake on long hot rallies. And whatever the event, keep your temper. Rally driving can get stressful, but that's no excuse for shouting at volunteer helpers, for instance. Always respect officials. Their instructions will often be given for safety reasons. And remember that not everyone loves our sport, so don't leave litter or drive carelessly on public roads. Accidents. Well, it's tempting to think they only happen to other people. Not so. They can happen to you. Should you have one and remain conscious, try to stay calm. Above all, beware of leaping out of the car straight into the path of another car. Display OK boards and warning triangles if appropriate, while if you retire from a rally and decide to leave the stage, make sure the organisers are aware of your action and that you're OK. Unnecessary searches and worry may otherwise occur. On special stage rallies, co-drivers should note and highlight in the road book the location of organisers' radio points. After even a minor accident, a doctor may ask you to go back for a checkup. Do so, it will be for your benefit. After the rally is over, know the protest procedure, but don't rush to use it. Try to resolve problems more amicably first. Thank organisers and marshals, then have a debrief with your co-driver and any support staff to consider how to do better next time. And finally, keep records that you can refer to if you do the event again. The better prepared you are, the more successful and safe you're likely to be. Enjoy your rallying.